Hello, everybody, and welcome to another one of our workshops here at Elizabeth School of London. So my name is Kieran. I am one of your English support tutors on the Manchester campus, and today we are going to be talking about executive summaries. Now, executive summaries are some things that you will be using in some of your assignments here on your higher education course. Okay, now it is a little bit different from some of the other types of assignments and essays and things that you will be doing. So this is a part of an assignment that you will need to include in some specific circumstances. Okay, so we're going to be having a look at what it is, why we include it, how we include it, things like that. Okay, so let's just get started. So first of all, what is an executive summary and its purpose? So if you don't already know, it's quite a difficult question to answer. But if you do know, just say it out loud, etc. But an executive summary is a brief overview of a longer report. Now, you might imagine that this is an introduction, but it's not the same thing. Yeah. Okay. So what you're doing is taking the main idea of your report, but giving it into a brief overview at the start. So the main things that it includes are, like we said, the main point and any recommendations. So therefore, you don't really need, if you're the audience, you don't really need to read the whole document in order to get the full idea. Now, the length of an executive summary, how long it should be, does vary. But what you should do is have a look at what the assessment brief or assignment brief tells you about it. All right. And it does depend also on what level you're at, what year you're in, if you're doing your master's, PhD, etc., etc. Okay. But again, like I said, just check your assessment brief. That should tell you. So this is a question that we often get asked of, is an executive summary the same thing as an abstract? Well, if it was the same thing as an abstract, it would be called an abstract, but it's called something different. So there must be something slightly different about it. So when we are writing our executive summary, we need to think about what it actually is, why we use it. So an abstract is more common in those other sections like science and the social sciences. Okay? And these sometimes only imply recommendations, only imply what should come at the end of it. But an executive summary is always explicit, is always very clear, always very definite about the recommendations you are giving based on your findings. Okay, so it is perfectly fine and it is required, it is necessary for you to actually make clear your recommendations. So let's think about these 4 key points. Okay, it's not the same as an abstract. Okay, it's not the same as an introduction because you're not really introducing the work, you're giving a full summary of the work. It is also separate from a preface, so it's not there to get the attention of the reader. It is there, again, like we said, to just give the main points and the recommendations. Okay, so an executive summary is just a manageable assortment of the highlights. Okay, so it is just the key points and it is included at the start. Okay, so the next thing that we have to ask ourselves is how long should it be and where should we place it in our report? Now, remember, your summary should be brief. Okay, it is not supposed to be a long extended version. Okay, it should be very short, typically somewhere between 7 and 10% of the total word count of your report. Now, in some situations it comes before and in some situations it comes after your table of contents. So again, check your assignment brief, check your report guidance to see what is actually required from your lecturer, from your course. And it serves as an overview before the introduction. So it is not the introduction. It is a general overview of the main points that comes before the introduction. Okay, and the things that your summary should do are summarize the problem that you're looking at. You're going to look at the methodology that you followed and then provide solutions before listing the outcomes. So let's consider the format then. How should an executive summary look? Okay. So you should have a title. So this is clearly going to state what that this is an executive summary. Okay. Then you have an introduction. Okay. All right. Then it's possible that you have a background. Then you have the purpose statement or the objective. Then you've got your methodology, how you've gone about it, your key findings, your recommendations, limitations, any analysis that you carried out, the implementation plan, okay, and then lastly, the conclusions that you have. Okay. All right, so we're going to have a look at a little bit later on at some examples of this, but that is the general outline of how your executive summary should look. Now, let's consider some of the common ways in which people get an executive summary wrong. Okay. All right. So sometimes people write more than 10% of the length in the executive summary. It should never be that long. Okay. Remember, it is a brief summary. Okay. And make sure that you're not copying what comes later in your document. You need to rephrase it, paraphrase it. Okay? And make sure that you are tailoring your summary to different audiences if necessary, because the person who is going to read your summary, who's going to read your report in depth is different from the person who is just going to read your executive summary. So maybe think about that. Okay, and lastly, make sure that your executive summary is clear, it is positive, and it gives your recommendations. Okay, so the things that possibly could come in a executive summary, they may vary, but one thing you would definitely need in the executive summary itself is an introduction to the executive summary. Okay, so what are the introduction to an executive summary does is it highlights the topic of what you're talking about. Okay, so you need to find a way to take the topic of your report, the topic of your executive summary, and get it into one clear idea. Okay. All right, so let's have a look at some example introductory sentences we have. So these are quite straightforward. This executive summary includes critical findings and strategic recommendations derived from a comprehensive analysis of, and then the name of your thing. Okay. All right, so you need to explain what the executive summary is, what it is looking at, and what are the results and the recommendations that come from it. So there are quite a few examples here on the screen. So you might want to pause, think about which of these would look good in your assignment, maybe rephrase them a little bit. Okay, all right. But like you can all see, they all have that function of describing what the executive summary is about and therefore what your report is about. Now, another thing you'll need to include is a purpose statement, which is a statement of the purpose of your report. Okay, so you're basically talking about its primary objective. Okay, all right, so what you're doing is you're providing a background of your topic, so therefore we can understand the rest of your report in its clear context. Okay, so your purpose statement also should be explaining what your aim, your goal, your purpose, or your objective was, and you should probably use those phrases as well. Okay, so why did you carry out your report? What were you hoping to achieve? What was your goal? What was your purpose? That's why we call it the purpose statement. Okay, so if you have a look at this example here on the screen, this is it all broken down for you here. Okay, so this is only 200 words, so that would be, if we consider 10% of a 2,000 word report, so then it works out fine. Okay, so we have the introductory sentence. This report provides an analysis and evaluation of the current and prospective profitability, liquidity, and financial stability of Outdoor Equipment Limited. So if we just read that first sentence, we know basically what the whole report is about. Okay, it gives us our method of analysis, what the findings told us, the conclusions that we can take away from them, the recommendations based on the findings, etc., and then the limitations of the report. So that's where we could talk about where future further research is needed. Okay? So it's not too difficult. If we just split it up into its different functions, then it just becomes quite easy to do. Okay, so here's another example. Again, if you have a look at that first sentence, it tells us the reason. It gives us a main overview of what our report is about. So this report was commissioned to examine why the sales volume of Choice chocolate has dropped over the past 2 years since its peak in 1998, and to recommend ways of increasing the volume. So again, if we're very busy people and don't have a lot of time, we can just read that first sentence and we know what the whole of the report is about. So this is incredibly useful in academia because we're all very busy people. So you see in the following sentences, it has the key findings, then it summarizes some solutions to the problem, and then we have those recommendations that come from it. Okay, so you can start to see that an executive summary is very different from an abstract. It is not even close to being the same as an introduction, things like that. So one more example here. Again, we've got all of those similar features. Okay, so you've got the first sentence that tells you what the report is about. Then you've got the aims there as well. You've got some analysis of the situation, and then you've got recommendations later on. Okay, so we talked about recommendations. One of those executive summaries there talked about the limitations. So you will need to talk about the limitations. It's good to be modest in your suggestions. So while you're carrying out your report and you're doing your research, it's good to note not really what went wrong with it, but what has limited your approach. Okay, was it difficult to get some data? Could you have maybe made it bigger or gone wider or in fact narrower and things like this? Okay, so try to think about how your report could have been improved. Okay, now this is completely fine. It's not as if you're admitting some weakness. It is actually you thinking about how you could make it better. And maybe in the future, if you do more research, you would make it better. Okay. So basically you're thinking like, how has your methodology, how has your analysis been affected by the limitations that you've had? Okay. All right. So there's an example sentence here. The inability to establish social connections with remote tribes in New Zealand has made gathering data on social life patterns and interactions with the tribe almost impossible. Okay, the available linguistic guides have been insufficient for analyzing the language specifics. So this isn't a bad thing. This is in fact a good thing. It's saying like, this is my research. It could have been better if I could have done this. Okay, and that's what your limitations part of your executive summary is describing. So how does this tie in with your wider report structure? Okay, so report structures do vary, and you should always check your assignment brief for what they're actually looking for. But generally, reports look something like this. Okay, again, this isn't the same for every report that you do, so please check the assignment brief. But generally, what mostly comes up is there is a front title page, then you have the executive summary, then the table of contents, then you actually start the introduction to the report itself. You've got your literature review, you've got your pestle analysis, conclusion, reference list, and all the bibliography, and then you have the appendix afterwards. So you see that the executive summary is just one part of the wider structure of your report. Okay. So you can see in its placement before the table of contents and after the title page, that means that it is basically the first real thing that people read about your report. Okay, so that's why you need to explain the whole of your report in a very small, brief description. Okay, so thank you very much for viewing this short workshop on the executive summary. I hope it's been useful for you. If you do ever need any other help and you're a student at Elizabeth School of London, then please contact us at englishsupport_manchester@esl.ac.uk. You will find also, because you're watching this on YouTube, or if you're watching this through Moodle or through any of the other VLEs that we have, that we have a YouTube channel with workshops, videos created for every little issue we may have with academic English and with writing reports and assignments and things like that. So please subscribe, have a look at the videos, and I hope you find them useful. So thank you for attending today, everyone, and hopefully I will see you again soon.